come one, come all, those short, those tall. There may be some clowning around, but you'll get an earful, all in all. No need for waivers, no need for saviors. Don't be frightened, do not hide. Enter now and enjoy the ride. So step right up, those far and near. The attraction is set. It's Ear for Fear.
Hi, welcome to the Ear for Fear podcast. This is the podcast that talks about scary movies or movies trying to be scary. I'm Rick.
I'm Donovan.
Hey, how's it going?
It's good.
I pulled him out of retirement, one of the original creeps.
It's good to be back.
Yeah.
I was never far away, just not on mic.
Yeah. I twisted his arm and got him to do an episode, and it just happens to be Father's Day. So hey, that's your present to me. Is
this
dude.
horror. We do a lot of horror movie stuff, I guess, for Father's Day. This and then horror convention next week.
Yeah. We're gonna do Creature Con over here in Sacramento-ish. So so welcome back, man. It's been a bit.
It's been a bit. I also haven't even been watching that many scary movies since I retired from the podcast.
I know. Yeah, so we this movie kind of I had made a list like I typically do, like towards the beginning of the year. I'll make a list and I'll go, okay, what stuff's coming out, and what stuff can we do? And I think this kind of this I don't know, year or season, and this will be the third episode in, because we decided to kind of do a little less episodes. Like we were doing every 2 weeks, and then I'm like, that's just a lot, and let's just go once every month. And even that, with everything that's going on these days, I'm finding it hard to do. But this was on the list, and it's 2023's Stopmotion. Stopmotion. You had this. It was funny because when I stuck it on the list, and at that time, I didn't know you were going to do an episode. And I remember you bringing it up, didn't you? Like you had maybe come across it or something. And I was like, oh, that's cool because that's on the list. And so I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of cool if we did that one.
Yeah, there was two movies I heard were pretty good that kind of came out at around the same time. It was Stopmotion and it was Late Night with the Devil.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe you and I had talked about that. And I believe you said you wanted to go see it and do an episode on it. And then I brought up this one too as two movies that I was interested in watching. Yeah. And so I've seen both. Yeah. Well, I've only just seen Stopmotion, but Late Night with the Devil I kind of watched on my own. I was really interested in that. I love the premise. That movie was great. Like both of these movies actually kind of feel like throwbacks to old horror films in their own way. Yeah. In their own way. Stopmotion, deals with stop motion puppetry. And then Late Night with the Devil is kind of like an ode to like late night talk show hosts, while also kind of having a bunch of like fun effects and like dealing with I forget what the like devil panic, or what I'm talking about. Yeah That was way before my time, so I'm not quite sure if that's the right phrase. I don't know if that. I mean, I understand what you're saying. Satanic panic.
Panic, there you go.
I'm a big sucker for that stuff. What were those puppet movies?
Oh, like Puppet Master and like Dolls, and there was like a ton of them. Like there was this like in the 80s, God, I forget what part. I would say almost late 80s, early 90s. There was like this kind of onslaught of like puppet movies, and Puppet Master was one, and there was a movie called Dolls, and there was other ones as well. Obviously, if you really want to like get technical, we could say Chucky, right? Like Chucky is the kind of the it. Because it's just a doll movie, right? But it's just done to a different level. Like the other ones are fun, but I don't think they're done as well as as all the Child's Play and the Chucky stuff. I
really love tiny little puppets, like hand size, because there's nothing really intimidating about those, at a glance.
Yeah.
But when you get like 5 or 10 of them and they're just got like little knives or scissors and they're starting to cut you up, it gets kind of freaky.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen a Puppet Master movie since I was a kid, and maybe not even all the way through, but I remember those, and there's a lot of charm to that. I was hoping before I came into this movie that would be there. I quickly got the vibe that this was not going to be that type of movie. But
yeah, it didn't take me quite long to figure out what was happening here. Actually, before we do it, I'll do a quick synopsis, and then we'll do a quick spoilers. Basically, Ella is an animator for stop motion, and she struggles. You could tell she's got these demons. Now, at first, we don't really see it until there's some trauma with her mother. But once she loses her mom, you can tell that these demons kind of resurface. So before we move on, full spoilers.
1, 2, spoilers coming for you.
Just in case you haven't seen the movie, or if you want to check out the movie, go check it out and then come back and listen to the episode, or just listen to the episode. I could tell, like, once, in a lot of these movies, like, there's some sort of trauma, right? It depends on the type of movie. This one falls into that category for me. There's some sort of trauma, and that trauma seems to ignite something, in this particular case with Ella. At the beginning of the movie, we see her working with her mother. We get this impression that her mother, I think, was, I don't know, was she famous, or like in the stop motion world?
we have one character saying she was a legend and had seen like all of her films. So she was definitely a known figure in this universe.
Yeah.
So I forget, the guy who's did like Mad God?
Mad God, yeah. I don't know his name, though.
Yeah, I just kind of assume she's kind of like on that level.
Oh,
Everyone
okay.
kind of knows who they are.
I see. Not because these types of stop motion aren't like, say, the I don't know, Nightmare Before Christmases or the Coralines. This has a more dark side to it. And that's what, it seemed like a lot of them, like they were showing, like her Ella's boyfriend's sister works for a place, and they were showing one with like it looked like an Easter bunny, but then another one looked a little darker, so there's these darker elements to these films,
And even the Easter bunnies, that one was stomping on the eggs and it was all gore when it cried.
Oh, see, and I didn't catch that.
So like all the people who seem to be in this little group, are kind of dealing with kind of more like adult-oriented,
stop motion,
gnarly stop motion, and not like your Coralines or Nightmare Before Christmas, stuff like that.
Yeah, James and the Giant Peach, or those, or even though but I didn't even notice that. Yeah, but I mean, they're definitely definitely on the darker side. Her mother, I think her mother's name is Suzanne, but I don't even know if her name even pops up.
No, that's right.
Yeah, and she has arthritis, so she can't. One of the main parts of stop motion is to take the character and move it just a hair, snap a picture, and you're doing that, and because she has arthritis, it's now kind of been taken from her. So she uses Ella. She calls her Puppet, which I just think is so messed up, But as the movie played out, because the mother seems very overbearing and controlling all these things, right? She seems very almost afraid of her mother, that she can't be vocal with her mother. But I think as the movie plays out, I think we realized that the mother was kind of, good or bad, controlling her, controlling these demons that once the trauma hit.
Oh, you think the mother kept that stuff at bay?
I do.
Is that?
I do.
Okay.
I actually do. Because once her mom had the stroke and was in a coma and then died, this got really bad. Did you not think that? No?
That's such a funny interpretation of an abusive parent. I don't think that interpretation is particularly great. I'm not saying it's wrong. We are watching essentially a horror movie, right? So, like there being no good side of that barrier essentially for Ella is kind of a tragedy in its own way. I did not interpret the mother as being a barrier for that. I interpreted her mother as being abusive, and then the girl that we see later on in the film being a manifestation of this lack of control that she had but wants to have, and so she has to create something in order to basically have someone pull her own strings, even if it is kind of just her, essentially.
Yeah.
Like she needs someone else to do it. She can't have her own agency. And so her mother was that lack of agency, right?
Yeah.
You know, pulling her own strings. And then now it was that girl.
Even though the girl is literally her.
I will say, like, this movie is definitely all about, you know, abuse.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think your interpretation's very interesting, but super messed up.
I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I'm just, that's how I took it as I was watching this. Like, you know, like I felt that in the first 30 seconds of the movie, we kind of get this impression, like when we get this close up of Ella's face, and it looks like she's in a club and all these, and it seemed like she had all these different faces, you know, and maybe these are all different faces that were just personalities that were potentially bottled up, controlled by her mom. Because her mom, you know, when in the hospital, when she's imagining her mom talking to her, the mom says something about her being very morbid. So my guess is this was going on when she was a child. The little girl, I think, was just some sort of I don't know, suppressed, you know, person that, you know, I think it was her. I think it was, you know, the little girl's her, but when she was younger, who had all these thoughts. And I don't know, did she act on them? Did she not act on them? There was the mom there to control that. Like I said, her mom's very overbearing and controlling, but was it needed because she knew her daughter was I don't know, crazy? She had all these bad thoughts and
right. You're kind of coming at it from like the Dexter perspective, right? Like the mother almost had this control over her the way Dexter's father in that show kind of had the code, right, to keep all these demons at bay. I am always more inclined to think that these things happen as a result of a catalyst in the movie, the catalyst being her mom's stroke and eventual death.
Yeah.
So I would say that these sort of dark thoughts come as a result of this lack of control that she has after years of abuse from her mother, by not being in control on her own. That's where I came from of it. I find what you say to be very interesting, and not my first thought in any way. In fact, I would even go as far as to say we've never seen the father in the movie.
Yeah.
We don't even ever hear about him, but there is this character called the Ash Man.
Yeah.
Right? That's created for the story. And I kind of got very icky vibes from the Ash Man.
Yeah, I did too.
About, you know, and usually when you get an icky guy in these types of movies, and we have a movie that's very clearly about abuse and trauma, the next place you go is, was there sexual assault involved? And is that kind of like an underpinning for Ella's character? Now that is very not part of the text explicitly, but that doesn't mean it's not there when you've got like this circumstantial stuff happening in the movie. So that's kind of where I thought, because we had very briefly talked about this before the episode, and that was what I thought you were referring to when you came to like, oh, I wonder if we thought about this interpretation in the same way. Not the keeping the things at bay, and the mom was like this wall or this locked door.
I don't know.
You know,
Yeah.
for me, it's almost kind of like, what exactly happened with her parents? We kind of see what happened with the mom. Did anything happen with a father figure or another man in her life when she was younger? And that's also why we've got this little girl as, you know, her puppet master that she's created for herself.
Yeah.
You know, so regardless of how you read this movie, it's all really dark. This is actually one of the darker movies I've seen in a bit.
Yeah.
And I just watched like The Zone of Interest not that long ago, and that deals with literal, you know, Nazis. So yeah, this was definitely a hard watch, and
it was
very uncomfortable. And they
yeah.
really kind of dug into that in some of the more body horror aspects too.
They did. I mean,
just to talk more about that icky subject, I mean, there's literally a point where you have a puppet spreading open her leg. And it is just, it's not her legs, it's her leg.
Yeah.
But, it's the opening is even symbolic, right?
It
the
is.
act of it and how the opening looks, right?
Absolutely.
And she would then go into that same wound later on in the film and do it herself. So there's kind of like this reliving of that that pain in a sense.
Did you think that the little girl was a manifestation of herself when she was like at that age? Like I got the impression that whatever happened, this icky moment or moments, depending on how often it happened, was at that age, and that's why she's, let's just call the girl 12. She looked 12. Maybe it's 11, but 11 or 12, maybe. It's that age because that's when it happened, and and essentially it changed her, and I don't know, what did happen to the father? Did the father die? Is he still alive? But because of the situation, the mother, sent him on his way because,
yeah. And I wouldn't even go as far as to make this argument in the first place, if not for, I think it's like on the second night, Ella and the girl are kind of like discussing the next beat of the story.
Yeah.
The girl is saying, well, she gets touched. The
Yes.
girl within the stop motion film. And Ella says, no, she escapes. Right. And the fact that there's this disconnect between Ella's manifestation of, this person that she needs to control her and how she feels in her own body, essentially.
Yeah.
There's this disconnect there. And one is saying, this happened. The other one is saying, it didn't happen, and that person, I think, is saying, well, I wish it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where like the crux of my argument comes in, because outside of, the Ashman as a character and this kind of little scene here, there isn't any other place to expand on that bit of the story. Especially with the any sort of male figure being absent within the story, never even mentioned. And then the only other kind of male character is her boyfriend.
And I never get the impression with her and her boyfriend that there is any weirdness there. Like, because if that did in fact happen, and I don't know, but I know that sort of trauma is it sticks, it's with you forever, and then you find yourself very untrusting of any male figure. I didn't get that impression with her and her boyfriend. I didn't at all. So then it's like, if I know people when something very traumatic happens, they try to pretend it didn't happen. And over time, they almost convince themselves it didn't happen because it was so devastating to them. And maybe that's how Ella is remembering it versus how the little girl is remembering it. Because I don't know if I'm right. I just feel like it's a young version of her. So.
Right. Yeah, it's like the puppet, like the stop motion bit, and you're controlling these puppets. It's kind of like the perfect metaphor, because puppets have zero agency, and when you have something terrible happen to you, your agency is removed completely. So, her profession is interesting because that's where you're in control again. But in Ella's case, she actually has a lot of trouble being in control.
Yeah.
So if something terrible happened to her, then that was a complete lack of, any control on her part. And now she kind of responds in turn by the only comfortable place she can be is kind of like reliving that. And this is a horror movie. It's a tragedy, It's 90 minutes of that.
Yeah.
So, it's awful to watch.
It was. Yeah. I mean, it was, I say the first 30, 40 minutes was a little, slow, which I knew. I had a feeling it took time to build up to whatever was going on. And then, then all these things are starting to happen. I started to get very uncomfortable, especially towards the end. But it's like, we see this very short glimpse of her relationship with her mother. And her mother seems a certain way, again, very controlling and very opinionated. And like there was a scene early on where you could tell Ella maybe isn't feeling this short film that her mother is, the story that her mother came up with the Cyclops, even though I think that it's actually kind of an interesting take, removing an eye to see certain, I thought that was kind of cool, but you could tell Ella's not into it. And then she makes some sort of comment about, hey, I have some ideas. But then when the mother, confronts her in a sense, not in, like, hey, then tell me your ideas. And she had no voice. She could not speak. She could not, even though I'm sure she has plenty of ideas. She was confronted, by her mother, this very, I think, powerful figure, and she had nothing to say. She just clammed up and couldn't say anything.
That's what I found your idea to be interesting, because it got me to think about that scene where if she does have ideas, maybe they are, a morbid, like a degree of morbidity that's too far for even her mom.
I think so.
But that's kind of where I thought you were heading towards. But for me, the first place I went to is, well, her mom is supposedly like a genius in the space. Her daughter here is now kind of in her shadow. Well, what do you have to contribute?
Yeah.
She gets the opportunity, and then...
And she clams up. She can't say anything. She freezes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I mean, maybe it's that, or maybe it's a bit of both. It's, if this thing did happen to her and it stripped away any control or identity that she had, and now she's just kind of in the shadow of her mother because that's all she's used to, right? I mean, that's probably how it's been since this possible incident happened. If something like that did happen, it's very traumatic. It strips away your identity, and that's how I kind of took it. But I thought that the mom was there to control her because, like she said, when she was talking with her in the hospital, of course she's imagining because her mom is in a coma, and her mom says that you have these morbid thoughts and you're just a puppet, and once people pull your strings, they put you back in the box. And I was like, well, that's kind of messed up. But I'm like, I don't know, maybe because these thoughts have been around forever. And her mom's maybe somehow kind of kept them at bay. I don't know,
So we can talk about her film, I think, because the film is about a girl lost in the woods, finding shelter in a house, being chased by this creature or man called the Ash Man, and then eventually being chased by him into the house, right? And then, eventually getting caught.
Yeah.
It's kind of the gist of the story. Now, when you take that film within the context of Ella's real life, it kind of ends up with, or the film as a whole kind of ends up being this thing where she is kind of telling the story of the ending of her life, right?
Yeah.
She eventually ends up dying through the creation of the film.
Yeah.
That's where the movie stop motion goes, and that's where the stop motion film within the movie goes.
Yeah.
So, like the one thing she was able to make and create that was wholly her own was just her own death. And there's something pretty terrible about that, where you can only ever really kind of be yourself when you die. And that was kind of all that she felt that she could share with the world. And she also had to do it through acts of, murder, because she kills her boyfriend and her boyfriend's sister, and then as well as herself. So I think there's something pretty terrible about that, that within this reality, this person was only able to share one thing, and that was her dying.
Yeah. Now, yeah, I agree with you. It's sad because there's a scene towards the end there, and it's where she once she kills her boyfriend, I think his name was Tom, and his sister, then she kind of makes these kind of almost not life size, but close to life size figures out of parts of their body of these characters. This girl in the woods, and then Ashman, and then all of a sudden it's they're filming this with a little girl there, obviously, and the Ashman decides to kind of reroute and start going after Ella, and she goes into the closet, and then we get this scene of the Ashman like eating her face. At first I was like, okay, well, it's like, it's kind of like I told you earlier, if this thing happened when she was younger, it's kind of stripping her identity. It's stealing her identity, right? And I was like, this Ash Man, this figure is basically consuming her. The trauma, what I believe is the trauma got so bad it eventually consumed her, and Ash Man in a sense was the trauma.
Yeah, what better representation of a person is better than their face?
Yeah.
You lose your face, you kind of lose who you are in a sense.
Pretty much.
Or at least what people identify you as.
Definitely. And I think we saw earlier on in the movie, if you remember, and I just thought about this. Do you remember when she stayed the night at, well, I don't think she stayed the night. I think she was going to leave to go back home because she said, I have to get home before my mom wakes up. But he was sleeping, and you saw her grab his nose and hold it to stop him from breathing. So you see small glimpses of stuff with her, and then that's the way she eventually kills him. She grabs, after she kicks him down the stairs and he needs help, but she takes her fingers, grabs his nose so he can't breathe, and then puts her hand over his mouth, and that's how she kills him. So you see these small glimpses. That's why I think like the mom was this, I don't know, like I said, it's obvious you could tell she was all these things, right? But once she was in the hospital, she just started to spiral. And I don't know if it was partially because her mom was now dying and wasn't there anymore, or it was the fact that she scrapped that movie of her mom's and started to do her own. But I don't know, man. I almost feel like the trauma of her mother really kind of initiated this whole thing, and her mom wasn't there, was no longer there. Like maybe we, as far as we know, the mom, from the surface, what we saw the brief scenes with her mother, she's like this terrible person, but I don't know.
I think as soon as she lost someone to kind of help guide her, that's when the trouble started. They just happen for us. Like it's a different side of a single coin.
Yeah.
She needed someone to help her through her life, even if that person was abusive.
Yeah.
And then as soon as that person was gone, she had to create something on her own.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she had no, like I think we said that there was no longer anyone there to kind of pull her strings. And then there's just like the slow degradation of not knowing really how to go on your own. Yeah.
Not being able to do it.
Yeah.
And then kind of going to a very dark place.
Oh, that was dark, dude. I mean, the stuff that she was, I thought that when her boyfriend's sister Polly was like, yeah, sometimes I take stuff to get inspiration, and then I thought she hadn't even taken that because she goes to the club and the sister gives it to her. We just assume she took it and was just tripping balls. She didn't take it at all. I mean, she was spiraling like bad, like the stuff that she was the stuff that she was doing. You could just see this steady decline in her mental.
Yeah, we did kind of, to your point, this is a kind of a movie of the villain, right? Because she's the murderer in this film. She's the one who is kind of like manifesting this dark trauma in her head and then projecting it out into the world. And then she eventually ends up killing 2 people and herself. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, pretty hard to watch. The body horror in this movie was kind of gnarly, even though it was kind of, well, there weren't too many scenes of it.
It wasn't as bad as some of the other stuff I've seen. There's a lot of stuff out there that's far worse, and I'm kind of glad it didn't go down that road. I thought there would be more to it than that. But yeah, towards the last, I'd say 15, 20 minutes, it got uncomfortable. Let me ask you this, because we keep referring to this icky thing that, there was a scene where the Ash Man spit something out of his mouth and fed it to her.
Yeah, like an egg.
It was like an egg. And then once once towards the end, once the ash man essentially kind of consumes her, the egg pops. It looked like it kind of burst or something. What did you take from that? I see. Without getting, I don't want, when we keep saying icky, I think people can fill in the blank, and I don't want to go down, get too detailed into it, but that's where I believe her innocence was taken. With this ash man, and it could have been her father, it could have been some other male figure. And I felt like that was the time that her innocence was stripped away from her. And that's where we got this kind of, the egg burst into popping was like this kind of metaphor of,
Right, like an egg is kind of symbolic on a couple different ways, one of the first one that comes to mind for me is actually the fragility of the egg.
Yeah.
You have to take care of an egg or else it cracks. And the act of cracking an egg means it's destroyed.
Yep.
Right. So, yeah, I can tell you I'm not too sure about the egg.
Yeah.
I think your interpretation is a good one. Especially if we kind of go back to that subject of, well, what terrible thing might have happened to her in the past? And is that girl a manifestation of this time? And then is the egg itself that we see at the very beginning of the movie and then towards the very end a representation of the act itself having happened?
Yeah.
Where once it was full and now it's cracked, and now we're seeing Ella finally kind of at the apex of her decline, becoming undone herself.
Yeah.
I think that's a good interpretation of basically the plot and the background stuff of the movie.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad. It's a cool image.
It's a cool
It
image,
looked awesome.
but it made me uncomfortable because that's that's where I went. My head went, immediately, and I got uncomfortable because I'm like, I'm not saying I'm 100% sure that's what all this is about, but
well, there's also kind of the forcing of the egg into her mouth in one scene.
Yes, exactly.
Right. There's plenty of evidence for these in undertones for what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And and so I mean, there were things I will say this. I didn't love this movie. I liked it, I guess.
It's 90 minutes, so it's not long.
No, it's not. And I feel like this is the thing. Would I recommend it to someone? And I go, probably. I think some people would really enjoy this.
This is not like a Saturday, Friday night type of movie.
No, not at all.
This is kind of like
you have to be in the right headspace to watch this. But it's not a bad movie. Like, I feel like it's done. It's very well made. I think some of the stop motion itself is really quite great. And I think the acting is very, like, there are some great elements in this movie. Like, I didn't love it, but I didn't dislike it either.
Yeah, I heard you watching it, and the music really stood out.
Yeah,
the sound design with the during the stop motion aspects of the film, where you've kind of got like these weird memories from the little girl.
Yeah,
that's really good. The artistry and the craft here, I think, is excellent. As a whole, I'm kind of on the same page as you. I didn't love it. It's definitely kind of more of a mood piece for me.
Yeah.
And you're right. You have to be in the right headspace for a mood piece.
Yes. You really do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if
I would recommend it, absolutely would recommend it. It's 90 minutes, so it's not a huge chunk of time. And the visuals and some of the effects are great. And overall, it's a good movie.
Yeah. And I think Ella, I don't know the actress's name, but I think she was great.
Ashleen Franchosi, I think.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure that's how you pronounce it. But
she was really good. Like, I mean,
I want to check out another movie she's in called The Nightingale.
Oh, okay.
2018. I briefly looked at it before the podcast. I think it's like a historical horror movie.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's a kind of a revenge story.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, she kicked ass in this movie, so I kind of wanted to go check her out.
No, she was really great. Like, she carried this movie. I think, honestly, her and the little girl, everyone else was great too. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, and I think they had to carry this movie. Like, the main focus was Ella and the little girl, and then the stop motion, it was done very well. It's a little creepy and stuff, but I mean, that was the intent,
I would love a Puppet Master movie for real, though. No.
A puppet.
Yeah, I was really hoping we'd get some fun stuff.
And it was real, like it was actually happening.
Yeah, instead I just got misery for 90 minutes. But
yeah, this type of movie, for sure. Like, I knew it was never real, but that you can have that, but it has to be it's a very different movie. It's more campy and fun. This is not that. That's not the subject matter here on this one. But. Anything else that you think anything else that jumps out at you that we didn't touch on? I'm trying to.
I'm looking at the poster right now. The supplementary material here is really good.
Yeah.
I think I checked out the trailer too. I remember liking the trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about the music, which was a huge highlight for me.
Yeah.
Performance was excellent. Yeah, I think that we've covered just about it.
Yeah, I mean, we don't. Yeah, with this one, it's it's more of that underlining story of what's happening, and then us trying to we try to interpret it the best we can, I guess. You don't have to go on the weeds on this one. But yeah, I mean, I think I think other than that, I don't know if there's really anything else. I mean, I think it was ironic at the very end. She kind of like. I don't know. I don't know. Did she become the doll? Like, right. Was that the whole? The
very end of the movie, she goes back into a doll box.
Yeah.
Right. She dies, goes into the doll box. That's her agency completely gone. Right. And there's a line earlier in the movie where either the girl or the mom, I don't quite remember which one, kind of says, "When you're done playing with a puppet, you put the puppet away."
The mom said that when she was in the hospital and Ella was. The mom was in a coma and she was imagining her mom talking to her. But if you remember, the little girl said, "I love it." So it was like the story had to be told, and I think, and again, I think it was the little girl was her. So the story needed to be finally told, because it was just put away for a long time, suppressed. And so, yeah, but yeah, that's Stop Motion. I mean, like I said, check it out. It's a good flick. Again, be in the right headspace, but, awesome, man. Well, thanks for sitting in, coming out of retirement, dusting off the old vocal cords.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah. I'll have to twist your arm, maybe later on in the year, and we'll have to do another episode, since we're not doing that many these days,
Yeah, we'll see if something cool comes out.
Yeah. But that's it for us, everyone. Take care, and thanks for listening. Bye. You listened all the way to the end. We appreciate that. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Ear for Fear Podcast, Twitter at Ear for Fear, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Ear for Fear Podcast. You can also check out our website, earforfear.com. There we list news and events. We're available on all the main platforms, so make sure you tell a friend. We hope you come back and get an earful.